Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Got a big project. We're pulling the head off this 2016 Kia Optima. This is the 2-liter turbo. Right here is the diagnosis. Pretty wild. We found that the head needs to either be repaired at the machine shop. Hopefully that's what can happen. If not, it's gonna need a used head. We're gonna put a used head in it if this one isn't salvageable. So we're gonna be pulling the head off in this video. The next video will be installing everything. So first thing we want to do is drain the coolant. We're underneath the vehicle, we have it jacked up, put on jack stands. We're going to pull our underbelly pan off, or our undercover here. It's a series of 10mm bolts around the perimeter, some in the field. So we'll pull all those off. All right. Looks like I missed one bolt. We'll just slide it down and out of the way. So closer to the driver's side, this is our intercooler. You have our drain for our coolant. We'll put a catch pan underneath. We'll move that. Oh, that was easy. Lefty-loosey. It'll start draining. All right, our coolant is draining. You might be able to hear it in the background. What we're gonna do is start on this side with our intake stuff. If you want the coolant to drain a little faster, you can pull off the radiator cap. That should allow air to come in through here as the coolant's coming out the bottom. All right, 10 mil. A lot of stuff is gonna be a 10 mil, a 12 mil, or a 14 mil. And I like to keep the bolts with the part that I took off. So this will be set aside somewhere, and I have the bolts just right where they go with the part. Pop our battery off. It's a 12 mil for our hold down. Let's pop this off real quick. Should just pull up. It's just grommets holding it in. Ugh. Next, we're gonna get our intercooler pipe and our air box off. There's a clip here, electrical connector. These wire connectors, you just push the wire down and then it should pull right off. Little hose here, pull the hose off the manifold. There we go. The 8 mil for our clamp. A twist can break it loose, or a pick underneath can help break it loose as well if you can't twist it off. So that'll just come off like that. Couple of hose clamps. I'll take it off here. It doesn't matter if you take it off this end or this end. Either way, it just has to come off. There we go. Up and out. Now there's a metal gasket back here. We're gonna pull it off so that when we're moving around, we don't damage it. Now our air box will disconnect at the turbo. 10 mil for the clamp. This hose up here. 10 millimeters down here up front. I believe that's it. Let me double check. There we go, and it's just a grommet in the back. And then we'll pop it off the front here. It's not coming off the turbo very easy. I'm gonna pull the box off, and then maybe I could twist that boot a little better. Wow, that boot was super stuck on there, but we got it off. So next, the manual had you pull the valve cover off, but we're gonna hold off on that for now. We may disconnect the wiring harnesses and stuff around it, but we'll leave the cover itself on. That way, that dirt and debris doesn't get in it while we're working around it. So we'll free it up to be removed, but we won't remove it. I think our next step we wanna do is remove the intake manifold. It's just right here, easy to get to. And then we might hop on over to the exhaust. Now the exhaust manifold, I think I'm gonna leave on. I'm just gonna disconnect it from the main system. I think that turbo assembly and everything can just be lifted up with the head when the time comes. But when we get to that, we'll assess it and see how easy it is to pull that manifold off. So really, we're just disconnecting stuff, unbolting stuff right here, this conglomerate of hoses and wires. So right now you can't see, but I'm just getting the electrical connectors by the alternator and the AC compressor down in this little corner here. I think those are my last two I got. That little fastener holding it into the alternator, that harness clip, was super hard to get off, so I cut it. That's how we took care of that. So it looks like all of this can now just slough over out of the way. Looks like possibly a 10 mil, let me check. 8 mil. Okay. Got this bracket here. Some of these I'm just gonna put back so I don't misplace them. Take this hose, Okay, so we'll slough this aside once we get our fuel line off. That's out of the way enough. We got another line here on our purge. So that's all we're doing, just looking for connectors, hoses, that'll prevent this from coming off. As far as I can tell, that's it. So let's just start pulling the bolts off and see what might be hanging us up, if anything. 12 millimeter. So now from down below, we have those 2 bolts that we have to get off as well. You can feel them from up above, so whatever is easiest for you, from up above or down below. But those are the 2 bolts we have to get to. Okay, I feel like I'm stuck on something down below. There are 2 coolant hoses still hooked up. Looks like getting them from the thermostat housing might be a good option. There we go, not too bad. Using a pair of needle nose like this kind of helped, but I don't think it's necessary to use something that long, but okay. Let's go ahead and take our high pressure fuel stuff off. That way this side is completely finished. Then we'll hop over to the exhaust. We can leave this line connected. We'll disconnect this hard line here, up top and down below, where it connects into our fuel rail. Pull that little thing off too. 19 millimeter for this. We're gonna use a rag for any spray. It's best to do this after the vehicle has been sitting for an extended period of time, so there's not so much pressure in this high pressure line. This is a high pressure hard line here. We wanna be super careful. There we go, nothing came out for me. Of course, this car's been sitting here for about a week. We'll go ahead and pull off the bottom line too. There we go. Now this is a reusable line, so we'll be careful not to mess up our ends. 10 mil for the pump, and we'll just walk it off. There we go. I'll just set this thing aside. Perfect. Stuff a rag in there for now. All right, let's do the exhaust. So the exhaust is gonna be a little more challenging to show just because of its location. But let me just run you through what the manual says. So we have our oxygen sensor connectors right here. We'll pop those off. Then we have our heat shield. We got a bolt there. There are a couple bolts down here. We may not need to remove that, but just this upper one, I think this foil can slough over. Yep, that's just what it's showing, sloughing over. Then we got our other 2. That foil will slough over. Then we have our heat shield here. We have to remove our oxygen sensor to pull that heat shield off. Then a little further. Now down below it's showing to remove this. We don't have to because we're gonna unbolt it up here. Hopefully it shows it later on. But no, leave this on here. We may have to unbolt it from down here, but you can leave this bracket on. This is where we're unbolting it from, right here. So we're gonna take this whole piece off of the turbo. Let's see what else it shows. We don't need to do that. We can leave that on. So we do have a couple of pipes here. This aluminum pipe with a little, looks like it has a little flex, that comes off from underneath. This other hose, you can unbolt it from up above. I don't think we have to unbolt it from down below. I think just up above and it can move out of the way enough. But we'll see. If we have to remove it from down below, that's its location. Same with this flex hose. These are both oil hoses, I believe. There's 2 bolts underneath. We don't have to remove, hopefully, just that one from underneath. Then that's just showing the oil cooler. Down below it has this heat shield. So that's for unbolting the manifold. I'm gonna leave the manifold on with the turbocharger. I believe that's still the easiest thing to do, but we do have a couple of coolant hoses. It shows it right here as well. So this is the turbo inlet, the air inlet, and then there's a coolant hose. We just disconnect from one end or the other. We don't have to disconnect both. So just follow, there's a couple of coolant hoses that we'll have to pull off. And then it's showing to unbolt the manifold and have it all come out, but we're gonna leave this on. So this is what it's gonna look like for us when we pull the head off of the engine. Yeah, and that's it, and then it's just having it come out. So if you're gonna do it this way and pull the manifold completely off, this is how you do it. And then that's installing, so that's the order of installation. Now I'm gonna go to the car, kind of do this. I may explain a few things, I may not. So that kind of gives you like a nutshell of what we're gonna be doing. Just in case I can't get the camera in there, at least you know the steps if you're doing this yourself. So our O2 sensor connectors here, they just slide out of their bracket. There's no clip or anything that you have to press or anything. They just slide right out. Oh no, socket's too big. So I'm currently waiting for this tool. It's a special thin wall socket that's on its way. While I'm waiting for that, I'm gonna hop over to this side get those coolant hoses, oil hose, and all of that. I already went underneath. So far, I've just disconnected the one oil hose up top at the turbo that's held on with two 10mm bolts, and then two exhaust bolts. Those are 14mm, the two that go up. So let me swing you around so you can see what I'm doing on this side. You can get a small little pick for this. That just breaks the seal on it. Okay. That one's a little down below. Twist the hose. Use a pick on that as well. Oh, that's leaking quite a bit. Not expecting that much fluid to come out. But now I know. I got my catch under there. I'm just tipping the hoses over, getting as much coolant out as possible. I think there's just one more oil line up top. 17mm. And that's very flexible. So that's perfect. Now you'll have, this is a banjo bolt, so you have two copper washers. We're gonna get new washers. Sometimes these are reusable. We're getting ourselves a new set. But yeah, that just moves out of the way perfectly, so we don't have to unbolt it from down below. All right, as far as the exhaust, I'm just waiting on this O2 sensor socket. Once we get it, bust that loose, pull this heat shield out of the way, and then that will access our bolts. And we'll just move this. Hopefully it'll move out just enough to come off the studs. And I think that's all we need for the exhaust. There might be an electrical connector right here on the wastegate. Having a good pick set is invaluable. Comes in handy quite often. Okay, there. I think that's free. All right, well, let's take a quick water break while we're waiting for that tool. Then we'll finish up here. And then really after that, we're just doing our timing. Pull the timing cover off, get access to our timing chain, because we'll want to pull that off. And then we'll get this valve cover off. It's just a series of bolts. Once we get our coils out, and then remove the camshafts, and that reveals our head bolt. We're making good progress. So I didn't have my microphone on like I thought I did. I was just showing you the difference between the standard socket and the thin wall socket. It's the thin wall that you need. It doesn't matter if it's the deep socket or the shallow socket, it's the wall thickness. That's the important part. It backed out like 85% of the way and then stopped. Hopefully we can get it to come out. But if it breaks off, I guess we can have the machine shop drill it out and tap it, because I don't think this is gonna come out without breaking. I'll put a little on the threads here. Maybe a little heat. What do you think? Heat it up a little. Have a fire extinguisher handy. Sorry if my head's in the way. Okay. Give that a whirl. Okay, looks like it got it. Either that or it broke. Nope, got it, sweet. It's amazing what a little heat will do. So sweet, that's it. And that's out all the farther it needs to go. The gasket's down there. That's really hot, so I'm just gonna let it cool off, do its thing for a second. All right, these heat shields can stay on. They're connected to the whole turbo assembly. So now let's go ahead and work on our timing cover. We wanna pull our tire off. So this side we'll wanna jack up if you don't already have it jacked up. Pull our tire off. We need to get to our crank pulley. So the belt is a 17mm wrench. We can't get a socket in there, there's not enough room, but a wrench works perfectly. The tensioner isn't crazy tight, and the tensioner goes counterclockwise. So as far as taking the water pump belt off, I have a couple of tools. It's a stretch to fit belt, so there is no tensioner. This one here, Gates 91031. This can be used for like a Subaru. This one here, I don't know who makes it. It might also be a Gates, not sure. This was for a Ford. I did a Ford Focus with this one. All right, we're gonna take this fender well off. Having a pair of pliers like this really helps. Just holding on these clips. All right, and then we're just gonna bend it out of the way. Not sure if you can see anything I'm doing. I can't even see anything I'm doing. Let me show you what I got going on. So right there's that tool. I have it in between the belt and the pulley, and then I'm gonna spin the engine. And then as that spins, it should kick this belt off of that water pump pulley. That's the goal. I don't know if I can just sit you down somewhere. Yeah, looks like it worked. See if I can get this belt off. There we go. Perfect, got it. Might be a different story putting it back on though. Okay, let's pull our crank pulley off. So that'll be a 22 millimeter. Not too bad. See if our pulley comes off. Oh yeah, easy peasy. So again, filming's not gonna be the best because of the tight space, but this is our cover here. So with our oil pan, we wanna take out the bolts around our oil pan that bolt into our cover. We also have these bolts here. We'll take care of down here while we're here, and then we'll go up top and start pulling off that stuff. For the oil pan bolts, I just wanted to point this out. There's one bolt right here, 10 millimeter, that you cannot get off without removing this little bracket. That's for our AC compressor here. So what we want to do is remove this bracket. There's two bolts here, one here, one here. Fortunately for me, these were actually just loose in here like this. They weren't even tight. So whoever worked on it last, thank you, because now I don't have to undo them. But we don't have to pull them all the way out. We just have to have them disconnected from our bracket. Yeah, slid out a little. And then we'll 12 millimeter, we'll pull all those 12 millimeter bolts. And this little bracket just whoop, slides right out. And then we can get to that 10 millimeter. Just one more note too while I'm down here. There are two bolts, one here and one up there, both 10 millimeter. They are behind the water pump pulley. So the water pump pulley does have to come off, it looks like. And there are 1, 2, 3 10 millimeter bolts holding the face of it on. So what I would suggest or recommend is busting these loose before taking the belt off. I didn't know that had to come off, so I already took the belt off. But with the belt on, it'll hold it in place while you bust these or crack them loose. And then once the belt's off, then you can just finger pull them off. All right, we got everything down below, I believe. So next we want to take off our tensioner pulley. It is a 6 millimeter Allen or hex. We got a bolt up top, and there is a bolt down below. So that's one I forgot down here. The bolt down below can be a little challenge. What I got it with is a 1/4 inch, and it has like a little flex head on it. So it allowed me to flex just enough with a little socket or ratchet. Finish getting this top one out. All right. Now we want to get a jack with a block and put it under the oil pan just to hold this up, because we're going to be removing this motor mount. All right, these are 17 millimeter. There we go. We also want to pull this bracket off here. They look like 14. Yep. We want to pull this off so we can get access to that. This coolant bottle comes off. There we go. Let me just set this back for now. Put one bolt in it so it's not flopping around. Alternator bracket. All right, I think it's just these top bolts. 12 millimeter. Pull off this ground strap. So these are my favorite extensions. They have that little wobbly head on them. I think that does a lot. Let me double check. All right, so now we just need a prying apparatus, pry bars, screwdrivers, whatever you have. We want to look sometimes like right here, they'll give you a prying spot. You might need to move this out of the way, but maybe not. But they give you a little spot to pry. It's too small for this. Let me use a screwdriver. Well, not quite. Let's see if there's another spot. Let me look at the manual real quick to see if this has to come off, just to be sure. So it does have me remove this. Not sure, it doesn't show a hidden bolt behind it. So I think you want to pull this off so it doesn't bind, because it's a really tight fit. There's a little oil seal right here, because this spins. So there's a little oil seal. So you want to take this off so it doesn't bind up on there as we're prying on the case. You also want to be careful, this looks magnetic, so we don't want to mess with any magnets near this thing. I don't see that note in the manual, but it's just always a good idea. Okay, and the manual did say where the head meets the block, there's a little prying spot there, and I can see it. It's not huge, but there's a little prying spot. So let's see what we can do with it. There we go. Feels like it's stuck on the oil pan. Let me see if I got all those bolts. Yep, I think it's just gooey. Yeah, so that's all it was glued to the oil pan, but it is kind of stuck to it. There we go. Now you will lose a good chunk of oil, so have a catch pan under there. Drain the oil ahead of time, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Okay, here we go. Up and out. Plenty of room. All right, feeling good. We are making a lot of progress. It is lunchtime, so I'm gonna go ahead, grab a lunch, take a little break, and when we come back, we'll pull off that timing chain. The cams will come out, then we'll pull the head bolts, and hopefully it'll lift right up and out. So far, it's been about 4 hours that I've been working on this. This is my first time doing this on this vehicle, so 4 hours for me. I'm following a manual for the most part. If I had done this before, no doubt it'd be a lot easier. So far, this vehicle has been a pleasure to work on. Most of the time, I think, man, Kia loves us. There are a few times where I think Kia hates us, but that's far and few in between with this vehicle. So, take a break, come back, keep working. All right, we are back. Before pulling the chain off, we want to set our timing. So we'll have to spin the engine over. The easiest way to do that is with the spark plugs out. So we'll go ahead and take off our coils, take out our spark plugs, and then we won't be fighting engine compression while turning the engine over. 10 mil. All right, so we'll put the crank pulley bolt back in. Okay, so now we're just cranking the engine, turning it by hand until those timing marks line up where they need to be. Let me show you where I have the timing marks. So if you look at the top marks, there's one right there, one right there. They do not point at 12 o'clock. They're a little off 12 o'clock. This one is off in that direction. This one is off in that direction. So that's the top cams. Now if you go to the bottom, hopefully you can see. We turn the light on. It's too shiny, but the dimple is right there at 6 o'clock. So the dimple and then the keyway. Let me see if you can see the keyway. Right there at 9 o'clock. So keyway at 9, dimple at 6, and then that puts these up here, not quite 12 o'clock. So all we're doing, we're gonna pull the tensioner and then our 2 guides, and that's it. Chain should come right off. It's like 10 mil. Any internal engine components that you'll be reusing, you wanna set them on a nice clean surface. There you go. Okay, that's it. Now the cams move just a smidge, no big deal. If that happens on you, it's not a problem. Let's pull this cover off. Should be a series of 10 millimeters. All right, all the bolts are out. There we go. I just use a pair of pliers like this. These are for clips, body clips, but they work good. Okay, perfect. Gasket's stuck. There we go. Just looking at the cam real quick. Cam looks really good. All right, we have this front cam cap we could take off. So I want to gently finesse. There we go. Same on the other side. Nice. There we go. We'll pull this one off, we'll walk it. Now these are stamped, just so you know, it says I4. Let's see if the other one's I3, I2, I1. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You can take a picture with your phone, but we want to make sure that these caps go in the exact same order they came out if we're reusing this head and cam. It also has arrows. These arrows point inward, so it's not outward, but that arrow is pointing inward. Same on the exhaust, inward for those arrows. All right, this should just lift up and out. Perfect. Now we'll pull our fuel pump off, or the housing to it, or whatever this thing's called. There we go. Just be mindful of this little roller follower. It goes into the housing for the high pressure fuel pump. That rides on the cam, goes up and down, and moves our fuel pump mechanically. So just be aware of that. That might drop out of the bottom. All right, same thing, we're just gonna walk this off. And what I mean by that is break them all loose and then back them off a little more, a little more, a little more, and you'll see the cam kind of come up. Comes out. Sweet, got the cams out. So I wanna get a good look at these exhaust valves because one of them was burnt. I wanna see if I can immediately see head damage or not. Just looking for a crack in the head or anything that's obvious to the eye from up here. I don't see anything with my eyeball, at least from this perspective. One thing I forgot on this side is our coolant. There's like a big conglomerate of coolant stuff. We want to get that all separated from the head. There we go. Get that out of the way. It exposes a bolt right here. Let me see. Hopefully it's just those two holding it on. 12 mil. I'll refer to the manual if needed. It looks like just a 12 mil up here. And then one right here. And get a catch pan. Take this radiator hose off. There we go. We're just taking all 3 of these hoses off. Pick under this one. Let's see if this moves a little better. Almost, but not quite. I feel like there's one more. I don't feel it. Well, there's a pipe that goes around to the water pump. There's a bolt right down here. I can feel it. Okay, got it. Landed in my catch pan. So I think now that little cross pipe can just pop out. No? Let me see. Yeah, it should be able to. Give it a little assistance. There we go. Didn't need much, just the angle is hard to get leverage on it. Okay, so now that that's off, this should slide out. What's it holding up on now? It's just another hose down here it's holding up on. There we go. There we go. Perfect. That should be it. This is funny. So I gotta take the battery tray off. 1, 2, 3, 4 12mm bolts. We're doing so good up to this point. I do remember the manual saying the battery tray. There's a little harness clip right down here. There we go. It was easy to pull out. That should be all our troubles. There we go. Let me get the socket size for the head bolts. Put these back in so you don't lose them. Okay, so for pulling the head bolts, we want an M12. This is called a triple square. So it kind of looks like a Torx, but it has 12 points on it. M12, I'll put the link in the description down below. And the pattern for taking the bolts off is a diagonal pattern. So start on one corner, go diagonal, over, diagonal, and then we'll do that same pattern with the inside and then the last two middle. These should be pretty tight. Now this bearing right here for our exhaust, that can come out, I believe. Pop on it just a little. There we go. It just comes out. That way we get access to that one. The intake does not have a bearing like that. Here we go. Make sure your tool goes all the way in till it bottoms out. And we'll now that they're loose, I'm just gonna buzz them out with the impact. It doesn't matter the order that you take them out, it's just the order that you loosen them. All right, moment of truth. Hold that for a second. I'm gonna put a towel over here. Give me something to rest it on. I'll climb up and in. Oh, mama. Okay. Okay, got it. Woo. All right, we got it out. That was heavier than anticipated, but no big deal. Got the muscles. So I'm gonna start pulling it apart, getting these peripherals off. Then we'll be able to tip it over and look at that valve and get a better peek at the head from the underside. With our lifters, these lifters here, we're gonna put them in the exact same place as they come out. So we'll just keep them nice and lined up. I don't think it's hypercritical, but I just like being organized like that. Okay, that's one side. I don't know if you can see in the camera, let me see. Yeah, so I have it sitting on a towel. Clean towel. All the engine components that go back inside, I set on a towel. That way we keep things scratch free. Okay, nice. Now we'll pull our fuel rail off. Our intake manifold bolts. 12mm. There we go. Those all come out. Oop, that's just the bolt. Cylinder number 4. Yeah, super clogged. But that could just be all the debris and stuff that was bouncing around in there. But one thing that could cause a burnt valve is a lean condition. So I was worried about that injector being clogged, causing a lean cylinder. We're getting a new injector anyway, just in case it was damaged. So I'll just fast forward this. Really, we're just pulling everything off, pulling the exhaust manifold the rest of the way off. So that's really all we're doing. So I'll go ahead and fast forward so we can see the actual underside. The exhaust bolts are 14mm. I think that's it. Now when you tip it over, there'll be a lot of oil that'll spill out. No big deal. So cylinder number 4 is here, cylinder number 1 is here. I'm just looking real quick at the exhaust port. Because where did that chunk go, right? Big chunk of valve missing. It's just really wet. That's all I can see. I can see the chunk of the valve, but. All right, here we go. Let me swoop you in. I can't see anything with my naked eye. So it's gonna go to the machine shop. They'll give the final call. Let me zoom you in. Right there's the burnt valve. Turn the light on. There we go. So burnt valve's right there. Really this whole valve is really crusty. It's got crust on top. If they replaced all these a year ago, then this engine definitely produces a lot of crust in a short period of time. These do not look like 1-year-old valves. At least not what I'm familiar with seeing. Yeah, the amount of crust that's built up on these exhaust, the intake. I know the intakes get crusty for this direct injection. That's kind of a downfall of the direct injection, is the carbon buildup on the intake valves. Now usually that carbon buildup is on the underside. That just seems like a lot of buildup for 1 year. But anyway, what do I know? All right, this is going to the machine shop. Hopefully they give the go-ahead thumbs up. Now, cylinder number 4 is also getting a new injector. It's getting a new ignition coil. Of course, we're doing all new plugs because a burnt valve is not the cause. A burnt valve is a result. So something caused the burnt valve. All right, there you go. That's how you can remove a head on one of these Kias. Really not too bad. All in all, very happy with it. Now the head is a little heavier. I believe that exhaust, well, I know that exhaust, that turbo is actually quite a bit heavy. So it did add, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, dare I say 20 extra pounds onto the head, and heads are already, you know, pretty hefty. But doable, pulling it out, no big deal. This is going to the machine shop. It'll be there a few days at least. Most likely a week. I'll have to go ahead and order the valve, but I'm gonna wait on the valve until they give me the go-ahead, because a new or used head will have a full set of valves in it, and then the machine shop can do their magic on the used one instead of this one. So we'll see what they say. Hopefully good news. But anyway, this is part 1. Part 2 is putting it all back together and then firing it up. All right, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. See you on the next one.